You know, for a video that only got about 7,000 views, it sure got a relatively good chunk of comments, mainly people clamoring over about what garbage archetype was worse than the other, so I wanted to pick out a few comments in the pile and give my 2 cents about what you guys had to say. After all, I do read every comment. That's how I know which ones to remove. So if you want to be praised or ridiculed, feel free to leave a comment down below so I can make the comment section Ouroboros. Ultima says, I also think it's important to look at the time period of an archetype's release as well as when evaluating it. Ursaartic has no reason to be kneecapped like it is in the current age compared to stuff like Toons that are playing catch up due to being around before quote-unquote archetype design was ever conceived. First of all, Ultima, you trying to get me Twitter verified? Please, talk to someone there for me. And two, the reason why I'm leading with this one is because it's the only good comment in here, outside of the ones stroking my ego, of course. It's short, sweet, and simple, and brings up a point that I didn't make super clear at my fault, honestly. The importance of the relativistic time period. There are obviously a lot of terrible archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh! We'll get to those of course, but the main thing is that a lot of them are terrible mainly because of age. Because Ursaartic is so new, it doesn't really get any excuse for being the worst. Comparing Ursaartic to say Toons would be like comparing Magnus Carlsen to Paul Morphy. They're just two completely different beasts in two completely different eras, and much like Paul Morphy, I too would die of a stroke if I had to read what a Toon card did, but I digress. The second bit I should have made much more clear is that how despite tons of archetypes are worthless in their own right, they still have some cards and generic application that makes them somewhat better than Ursaartic. I'm talking about stuff like Arcana Force, who is generally useless until you remember that the world exists and is one of the goofiest FTK build-arounds of all time. Naturia nearly has no synergy with itself, but it has cards like Naturia Beast that put it miles ahead of any Ursaartic monster. What I'm trying to say here is that Ursaartic not only fails as an archetype, but they also fail at being cards in a game in general, since they're so extremely restrictive and have no general application for experimentation. Hayden X says, as someone who would love to be able to play pure Dark Scorpion, I find that the declaration of Ursaartics as the worst to be a bit overdramatic. The funny thing is, Dark Scorpions aren't even that bad relative to their time period. I mean, they can make fucking Izzle, like that should be good enough for most archetypes. But when you look at Dark Scorpions relative to their time period, their individual cards did see some pretty niche play. Donzo Luke was a 1400 Spirit Reaper, Cliff the Trap Remover was a Mystical Space Typhoon, and Chick the Yellow was responsible for the goofiest OTK on Earth, where thanks to Makura and Call of the Haunted, could smack you for 1,000 at a time and was actually semi-limited at a point as a result. You tell me the last time anyone's ever complained about Ursaartic, like in general. Mystic Destruction AJ says, Ursaartic is far from the bottomest of bottom tiers. It at least has the ability to summon monsters of OK attack, and it has access to a bad Unicorn and can summon it semi-reliably like once every 3 games. It at least has good spells that provide searches and draw power. Look at Konami archetype design with something like Arcana Force and look at true ass. No consistency, no power, no ability to do anything that Summon Skull Beatdown from 2001 could do 100 times better, and it came later to boot. Archetypes like Arcana Force is what should be considered the worst, not something like Ursaartic. When it comes to the first point about resource generation and monster spam, I made it a point to say that there are other decks that basically do the exact same thing. Stuff like Mech Knight, stuff like Grand Maju, stuff like Flower Guardian are all basically pretty okay archetypes or pretty mid-low level archetypes that do share this sort of resource and body generation. The difference is the resources that you are generating are actually impactful in some way, loopable, or you at least have some semblance of an endboard, where Flower Guardian can at least go Moonshower Viewing or whatever the level 12 is alongside Borderfly, which is honestly like not terrible. However, when it comes to Ursaartic's resource generation, the only resource you're generating is more Ursaartics. And what do Ursaartics end on? The world's worst Unicorn. Saying Ursaartic has good resource generation is like saying that a factory produces great broken pens. I'm just not gonna buy broken fucking pens. Regarding Arcana Force is terrible. Like, it's easily a top 5. But the thing is, you can't ignore that the World FTK is technically a deck. You can't ignore that some other cards like the Magician have stall application, as well as Temperance being the world's worst fucking Karibo. Again, it has no relation to Arcana Force as a whole or as an archetype, that the fact that these one-off cards have entire decks or strategies built around them is miles better than what you could say for Ursaartic cards in general. What are you gonna do? Like, play Ursaartic XC's OTK? I'm pretty sure that's like illegal. Frank says, also, Ursaartic are also a pretty useful engine in Bish Balkan Turbo, an obscure but pretty fun and competent rogue strategy. Alright Frank, be sure to leave a comment section down in this video for the 10 other archetypes that fall under the criteria that I listed earlier that qualify as worst archetypes. Like please actually do. I need the engagement score. YouTube hasn't been paying me since every Yu-Gi tuber decided to defecate in my general direction in February. You also mentioned that Bish Balkan Turbo is a competent rogue strategy. A deck like Earth Machine or Appliancer is a competent rogue strategy. Calling Bish Balkan Turbo a good deck is like saying Talisman of Spell Sealing is the next Imperial Order. Arthur says, worst archetype in the game? I dare you to build a deck that uses the Gen X archetype as a win con, not as a Hauki Aurora enabler. I like how at the end he says, hey, don't use Auroradon or Hauka Vibrax combos, that's cheating. I'm pretty sure Gen X doesn't even have a 1-card starter, like, what the fuck does Gen X do? Gen X, although as a whole is, you know, awful, has still had some playable cards throughout its history. Jara Dark was a shitty buyout during Dragon Ruler format to out Ophion. Gen X Undyne is a staple for water decks such as in Mermail and Plunder, and don't even get me started on the years of degeneracy Gen X Ally Birdman has inflicted upon this game. Yes, archetypes are filled with nothing but penis cards, but there are still some semblance of playability here in regards to generic support, which is again, miles ahead of what Urzatic could ever dream of. Marco says, Ice Barriers looks away in shambles after hearing that. I know Rada kind of memed this archetype to death, but the Ice Barriers aren't even that bad. Just the existence of Trishula should atone for its sins, but if you want to talk about the main deck cards, they're not the worst water Hauka Vibrax spam engine thanks to cards like Revealer of the Ice Barrier, and if you want to talk about generic play, Medium of the Ice Barrier has seen some play as well. Apparently Shock Troops was played to out the Jin lock and to make Anemolocaris and Shadal. That's pretty funny. Huffy Puffy says, can't believe my man really pulled a playing Urzatic is the Dark Souls of Yu-Gi-Oh! Saying Urzatic is the Dark Souls of Yu-Gi-Oh! Would be a disservice to how easy Dark Souls is in comparison. Playing Urzatic is like trying to play Dance Dance Revolution without arms, legs, prosthetics, and any of your 5 senses. Also, there's no machine. 3 Vela YT says, so we're just gonna ignore Warrock as the officially worst archetype ever? Yeah, Warrock is like pretty shit, but at least it functions within its own archetype and has a pretty clear style of gameplay. It's terrible, and the gameplay is like objectively terrible, but at least it functions in some way. Additionally, stuff like Gakdos is technically generically playable as a warrior extender if you want to, you know, shoot yourself in the foot. Adam says, yes, Urzatic came in bowed. Yeah, I can't read. The funny thing is that I actually googled Urzatic, and when I checked the wikia, my eyes just immediately scanned to mode and I just autopiloted. Whoops. Swap Gotron says, although informative, it's funny to me that this video is just the Yu-Gi-Oh version of Leon Massey's The Bottom Tier. Yeah, I went on like a fighting game binge and I think I just accidentally plagiarized his entire video. They're too good not to steal. What could I say? He's too goated. Go watch his videos. They're actually like good and funny, unlike mine. Like, please. And yeah, this is going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been pretty fun to just go at these comments and just have a little fun back and forth. Nothing of this is too serious, and I do appreciate you guys, except for that one guy who won't shut the fuck up about he beat me at an online locals with Super Quant literally 2 years ago. Like bro, get like a new hobby. Like, this is the only thing you talk about. And anyways, yeah, it's gonna be it for me. Leave more comments in the comment section down below so I can farm more reaction content. It's so easy. And yeah, see ya.